Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 26. This is we like to call this the Bon Appetit episode. But before we get started here, we got a little bit of something to share. So in Canada, what do you do when you're trapped inside your house with 14 children? Anyone want to have a guess what someone like myself does when I'm trapped with 14 kids in the house?
I have an idea, and it probably doesn't involve creating situations where you end up with more than 14 children.
Uh-oh, what do I do now? Well, this is totally backfiring. I was all queued up and ready to go. Well, that's not going to work so much now, is it?
So you want to work on it, and I'll explain what you were explaining to me earlier. You were explaining to me that up there where you are from, it is 0 degrees. Now that's not your temperature of 0 degrees, where it's like here that would be 32. It's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it's like -20 for you up there, Celsius or whatever it is. So that is a cold I have never experienced. Jeff, have you ever experienced being in that cold of weather?
Never that cold. That was too cold for me.
There we go.
There it is.
What does this man decide to do?
It's just cutting itself out all the time here. It's just cutting itself out.
Well, we tried.
We definitely did. Bottom line is, I went swimming. I jumped in a big snow pile with just my swimming trunks on. It was beautiful. The hair got all stuck up in the snow got stuck up in the chest, in the beard. Kind of looked like a bit of a walrus there in the Antarctic. It was fantastic. Good times. Kids had fun. They thought it was pretty funny. Got blasted on Twitter a little bit by some people who are just kind of like, what the hell is wrong with you? It was pretty much the common theme I got out there. So, board, this is what happens. If you didn't tune in last week, we are under the understanding here, so to speak, that apparently I just cannot win a bet. The makeover challenge, the Big Mac smoothie, and now this week I have to chow down on some dog food, which is going to be fantastic, which I always pay my bets. So here it is. Got this. Got my spoon. So we're going to dine down here in a little bit here. But first, we are going – is that really – that's what we're going to go with? Winner and loser of challenges? Just remember, I've got the power to edit here too, right? So we're trying something new here as well. We've got the Periscope going on. We've got the YouTube going on. So if people want to make some comments and stuff, this is the first time we've kind of spent a little bit of money here on the show. So feel free to hit us up with those questions. We'll answer them. We'll answer them as we go. And we'll try and get those out to you as some answers. We're going to preview some matchups. We're going to give you some inside information here. Jeff's got a lot of paperwork to work through for this week, it looks like, early on. So we're going to try and address those major injury concerns going forward. Calvin's going to hit you with some analytics, some information that you're going to find useful. And I'm just going to throw shit off a wall and see what sticks. Like we call that dingusology. And don't fact check. So without further ado, we got Thursday Night Football coming on. We're going to hit this up. We're going to do our show like we want to do it. A little bit of rapid fire off the get-go. Thursday Night Football, Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts. T.Y. Hilton's potentially coming back, Jeff. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, he practiced in full all week, and he's not even listed on the injury report, but he'll be back. Are you trusting him?
Am I trusting T.Y. Hilton? No, I'm not trusting T.Y. Hilton. We've had no reason to trust T.Y. Hilton all season so far. He has been a disappointment, to say the least, and all the owners are probably – anyone who owns him is probably like, I don't think you can trust him. I don't think you can really trust anyone who's going to run a pattern more than 10 yards down the field with the Colts right now. And with Desmond King out there and some other pieces that the Titans are going to put on there with the pressure, the Titans have been getting pressure. They haven't been getting the sacks. They haven't been getting the quarterback, but they have been getting pressure. Well, Phillip Rivers is like 72 years old and probably carrying 6 or 7 kids all week this week. So I'm just staying away from him here. Sean, he's chiming in here. Desperation play in deep leagues. Yeah, if you have to put him in, there's some big-time buys out this week. Your Falcons, Julio's gone. So you may be forced to put him in, but I'm staying away with him as much as I can. Calvin?
Yeah, I don't hate it as much as I guess most people do. I mean, obviously, Phil Rivers has not been very good this season, but he's found a way to win. And actually, there's been a couple of games where he looked like he was on the same page with T.Y. Hilton. And obviously, coming off the injury, you kind of want to lower your expectations. But the matchup in Tennessee is not a very bad one. That is something I'm obviously looking at here. And this is just going to be a fun matchup, right? Thursday night, you get division rivals who are both contending for playoff spots, could be playoff teams. It's just going to be a fun matchup. It should be a really good one to watch. The biggest disappointment for me has been Jonnu Smith. And this week, I'm probably looking at other options. The Colts have been very good on defense. This is not a really good matchup for anybody on the Titans side. But Jonnu, he's had 10 total targets in his last 4 games, 6 total catches. Obviously, he had a great start to the season. Things are not going his way the last 4 or 5 weeks. And in fact, the opposing tight end, Trey Burton, in this matchup probably is a better play.
I agree with that, especially with Jack Doyle out.
Yep.
What else we got here for injuries coming out of Indianapolis and Tennessee? It's not too bad as far as some of these other matchups go.
Yeah, the only other one is Adam Humphries with a concussion. But, I mean, really, you weren't going to play him much. I still like Corey Davis. So really that's it. Mo Alley Cox is questionable with the knee, so I still like Trey Burton.
All right, so we got Thursday Night Football. Who do you got this week? Who you got, Calvin? Who's your pick?
I'm going to go with the Titans. I think the Titans are being at home. They got a really good chance to win. Like you said, they've been getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback without necessarily getting the sacks. I think that changes this week. It could mean some garbage time production for a guy that I'm going to be paying close attention to, Michael Pittman. That's another potential desperation play who got he got 7 targets last week against the Ravens. So he could be ascending kind of at the right time for us.
Jeff?
Yeah, I have Tennessee as well.
I think it's a clean sweep here. I got Tennessee as well. So we're going to move into our next matchup here. I believe it is the Cleveland Browns, Houston Texans. So this is the matchup I decided to eat my dog food on. The dog pound Cleveland kind of all seems kind of fitting here. So I'm going to turn the mic over here to Calvin here, and I'm going to eat because I cracked this thing open, and my dog's been right up my butt the whole time. He's getting some food, but sadly, it's all mine.
So I'm tossing up Sean's comment here because you actually will get to find out. I think we will get firsthand experience what is worse, eating dog food or a Big Mac challenge. So you're about to find out for sure from someone who has done both, the loser of challenges, Mr. Dingus. So while he's doing that, I'm gonna try not to be distracted. I'm gonna try and be professional here, and we will talk about the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. It's a really interesting matchup to me. Couple of things, like it's starting to feel like you can trust the Browns a little bit. Not necessarily. There's still that little bit of you that isn't quite sure. I think the Browns. Oh God. Yeah, I was wrong. I couldn't stay professional. No, sorry. Ooh.
Are you having your dog eat the rest of it?
No, but he's down there thinking he's going to get some. So the secret is if you take tiny little bites, and you put it on the side and you take the little chunks and you kind of separate it a little bit, it works a little bit better.
Oh, man.
It works a little bit better. If you try and take the whole thing and swallow it all, not so much. But you take a big chunk, you kind of put it off to the side there in your lip, and you kind of break it down piece by piece, much more palatable. So Big Mac smoothie was definitely worse. The texture going into this one, caught me a little bit off guard. I thought I was going to have like some meatloaf kind of flavor, kind of like Mama's meatloaf. You can put it in your mouth there a little bit and you'd be fine. No, I'm not going to go. I'm fine. We're good. Okay, so everything's good here on my end.
Well, Jeff, let's throw it over to you real quick, because I think the biggest question in this game is going to be whether or not Nick Chubb is going to be good to go. And if he is, obviously we're going to be really excited about that. A really good matchup for him. What do you know about Nick Chubb, and what would you expect as far as him in his first week back in a few weeks?
Yeah, timeline-wise, it fits with the MCL sprain. I've been circling this game for him to return for a while now. And last I checked, which was actually this morning, last week he was doing a little bit of rehab, a little bit of drills, and he was looking pretty good according to the coaches. So they're going to make a full decision on Friday to see if he can play. I expect him to go this week. And honestly, if Stefanski is relatively conservative when it comes to injuries. So if Chubb is active, he's a safe play for me. There's no concern there. And then Sean made a comment here, Austin Hooper. I do expect him to come back too. He was a full practice today. I still don't know if I trust him, but honestly, with how thin tight end has been, you might just have to play him. On the other side, I'm looking to see if David Johnson clears concussion protocol. Usually it's a good sign if he can at least get a practice in by Friday. If he doesn't, then, there's still a chance he gets cleared on Saturday. But yeah, ideally he practices by Friday.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if this turns into a shootout, because I actually think there's a chance that we see a decent outing from Baker Mayfield if it is a shootout. The Houston Texans actually in the last few weeks, since week 6, they've been the second worst defense against the pass. So if it's forced into that, Baker actually could be a fairly decent play. And then we could see with Hooper, I kind of lean towards I'd rather see Harrison Bryant at this point, because I'm kind of excited about him. But, it is what it is, and they spent a lot of money on Austin Hooper. So obviously you expect to see him. I would love, even though the matchup isn't great, I would love to see Duke Johnson get a chance to be the full-time back. He has not had many of those opportunities in his career. It would be nice if he were to get that opportunity in this one. And in a game that they could end up having to open up and throw it, then maybe that works out in his favor, and you start to see a little bit of what Duke Johnson could have been. I like Jordan Atkins. I know that last week wasn't necessarily great, and I'm not necessarily saying he's going to have a huge week this week, but just in terms of we're in week 10 now, we're closing in on the end of the season. If you have a team that is starting to think about next year, I think Jordan Atkins is the kind of athlete I would want to add to my team, depending on who the offensive coordinator and coach would be next week, because you never know, he could work himself into a pretty good role. Matt, how are we doing over there? What do you think about Houston and Cleveland?
Houston and Cleveland. I think we're going to see Brandon Cooks. That's what I'm excited about, getting him going again here for the Houston Texans. He seems to be getting more and more. I think he's something like between him and Fuller, I think they're both considered wide receiver ones right now as far as ratings go. I think Fuller is wide receiver 10, and Brandon Cooks is right in that same ballpark there, maybe wide receiver 12, 13, somewhere in that ballpark. So the passing game, especially if David Johnson is out, that means I think they're going to try and push that ball a little bit more downfield against these Browns DBs there. And I think that's where you're going to see. I think Houston wins this game outright. I think Cleveland's in for a bit of a down. We're going to see the Cleveland Browns that we kind of expected to begin with the season with. We've got them. They've been lucky here, as far as I'm concerned, here, the kickoff. Now we're starting to see the true colors of the Browns. And, yeah, I think Duke Johnson, he's going to have a good performance. But for me, it's the wide receivers, Fuller and Cooks. I think they're both easily going to put up 100 yards this week against the Browns.
Yeah, I agree with Gary here. Gary says Duke has never had a real opportunity. Hope that will happen this week. I'm in the same boat here. What about this one? Question from Sean: which wide receiver do we think is going to lead the Browns?
I mean, you got to go with Jarvis Landry if he's healthy and ready to go. I really don't see Peoples-Jones. I don't see Hollywood there making a big difference for the Browns. I'm not even sure which Hollywood's good anymore, the Ravens or the Browns Hollywood. They're both trash, if you ask me. Yeah, it's got to be Jarvis Landry. Hooper, you might have a little mix. What I think could be a big difference maker here is the fact that I think David Njoku, if he's in the lineup and he's healthy to go, which I think he is, I think he could have that big game for you for the tight end position. I know there's a couple leagues I'm streaming him in this week too that I could really use some help at the position.
Yeah, I still like Jarvis Landry too. I mean, I'm not ready to give up on him completely. I do like the Rashard Higgins. Definitely seems like he's got a good rapport with Baker. Seems like he always has. So he's kind of one of those toss it out there and you never know what can happen kind of a guy. But just still got to leave. If I'm making a bet on who's going to have the most targets, it's got to be Jarvis. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one name, one guy who could come out of nowhere and surprise us who we haven't heard from recently is Kadarel. Can't even say his
Hodges.
first name. Hodge. Yeah, Hodges. I think he could come out of nowhere just only because it's Houston's secondary. I think he can make an impact. I'm actually going to take Cleveland in this matchup. I think with Chubb coming back, most likely, I think they're going to just ground and pound it.
Same here.
If I had to pick a wide receiver for the Browns, I don't feel comfortable starting anyone other than Jarvis Landry.
And then on the flip side, I said you got Cooks, you got Fuller, you got two good options there. I think Fells is an option tight end if you're looking at streaming the position as well. So you got some options on the other sideline. What else we got here? What's the next matchup? Bengals Steelers. This one's an interesting one for me because we've got Jeff here. He's going to talk some medical, and I could be swayed to take the Bengals in this one if Roethlisberger is not okay to play. Now, my understanding is it's a close contact because of Vance McDonald is why he's out. I do not know for sure if that's what it is, but that's why we've got Jeff here to clear up that kind of stuff for us. But if Ben Roethlisberger is not able to play, I think this is a good matchup for the Bengals to take advantage of. I think T. Higgins is going to ball out for the Bengals, old Higgy Bear. By the way, I'm copywriting Higgy Bear. And I think he's going to be unstoppable. I really do. Joe Hayden, it's a huge mismatch there. I think Mike Hilton's still banged up in the secondary for the Steelers, who is their go-to kind of slot corner type guy. Give me T. Higgins all day here. I think you're going to have a good connection. Joe Burrow is going to probably find the end zone once or twice at least in this matchup. And the Steelers, we saw them against the Cowboys, even with Ben Roethlisberger. Dallas is a porous defense, to say the least. They really struggled to move the ball on them. So, and I think Burrow is probably a better quarterback than Gilbert is, if I may say that. I'm not saying something for me to take an LSU player here, but I think the Bengals offense is better than the Cowboys. Yeah, the Cowboys have the better wide receivers, but it comes down to that quarterback position. Gio Bernard is another guy you could definitely put in your flex option this week, I think. It's the Steelers, I know, but we are in week 10, and there's some desperate plays that are going to need to be out there. You're going to need to get guys in your lineup, especially at the running back position. You could do worse than Gio Bernard with Mixon potentially being out.
Yeah, I echo that. And Mixon isn't a sure thing to play. He didn't practice today, though I was reading some good information or heard some good information that he has the right tools to manage his symptoms. But I need to see him practice before I actually feel comfortable starting Joe Mixon against the Steelers defense. On the flip side, Gio with the PPR upside, I don't mind him as a flex play, even if Mixon is active. And if Mixon's out, for sure, I like Gio as a potential running back too. Big Ben, I don't actually see much concern of him missing the game. If this was Thursday night with the close contact, I'd be a little more concerned from the COVID perspective. I think he'll be cleared by then. And then injury-wise, he was able to finish the game. He was in pain. He pulled the typical Big Ben, he got injured and he kept playing. He just sucked it up. So I'm not concerned about him playing at all.
Any concern about the swelling and everything post-game? During the game, you could take a shot. You could take your adrenaline's going. after the game, you get that swelling in your joints. The pain really starts kicking in after the game. You can definitely play through it for most, especially someone like Ben Roethlisberger, who's probably played through a lot worse than whatever happened to his knees that we're not too sure. But it was both knees. My understanding is both knees took a pretty good shot there. So no concern there at all.
Not very much, honestly. Left more than right. He's had, if he had been able to practice today, he either would have been do not practice or limited. I will not be surprised if by Friday he's a full practice. By Sunday, he'll have had 6 days to manage any swelling that's there. So yeah, honestly, I'm not concerned, and they'll probably give him an injection that we won't hear about.
Yeah, so if you were paying attention last week, then you would not have been surprised by the fact that the Cowboys made it a much closer game against Pittsburgh than anybody expected. And that was something that we talked about last week. Now, I will say the reasons for that is you've got Road Ben and you've got Mike Tomlin playing down to the level of his competition. That happens a lot more on the road than it does at home. I do not expect that to be the case this week. I expect this to be a runaway Pittsburgh win. I don't think that that means bad things necessarily for Joe Burrow either. I agree with you, Matt. I think he could have a really good day today. I think, or this week, I think there's a lot to like about him. I think you're looking at potential options. Oh, here we go. Let's watch this. I'll pick that up in a second. Go ahead. Take us through this.
Well, I don't know how well it's going to show here. It's here I am stripping down, pulling it out. Look at that big bear. That's a Canadian grizzly there getting ready to go for a
0 degrees.
Look at that. It just all sticks there. It all just stuck right on. That was brutal.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yes, I think that if Pittsburgh does kind of run away with this, I think even with a backup quarterback, when we did see that even with poor quarterback play, that they still did win a decent amount of games. And I think this is a matchup that I still would think that they should win. There's enough talent on that team to do so, especially at home. But I think Burrow can still have a good day. I think we are expecting good things from T. Higgins. We're expecting good things from Tyler Boyd. A guy I think could be a good desperation play with the bye weeks is Auden Tate. Coach made a comment this week about the fact that he needs to get him involved. He obviously looked very good at the end of last season. We like what we saw out of him. And I will say one more thing, just in case you're starting to wonder about Deontay Johnson, you're not sure you want to trust him and know that there's been some disappointing weeks. The targets have still been there. And even if Ben misses, he was still very good last year with the backup quarterbacks. And I wouldn't be worried about him at all right now.
So we're just going to touch base on this right now because you talk about Deontay Johnson not being able to trust him or not sure if you want to trust him. James Conner is that guy for me too. And Sean points this out. I put a lot of eggs in Sean Conner's basket last week. I thought, that Dallas defense is a perfect opportunity to bust a slump, so to speak. Not that he was been slumping, but he's definitely in a slump now because if you can't put up 100 yards rushing on the Dallas Cowboys and get a touchdown or two, then we have an issue. And he absolutely destroyed me in a couple of my leagues with the lack of production. The game script kind of got away from the Steelers somewhat there as they found themselves trailing quickly and not really being able to muster much of an offense. It seems like they almost abandoned that running game. Is there anything that maybe medically would keep you from putting Connor in your lineup?
No, I honestly think it was Dallas is you watch that game, Dallas's front seven was actually playing a good game, which was surprising compared to the last few. And Connor, I think they just decided to go away from him. They didn't. I'm looking up right now. They didn't give many other touches to the other running backs.
There's nine running back carries in that game.
Yeah, and yeah. So Anthony McFarland only had 3 rushes, 2 targets. Snell, I think, only had 1 or 2 carries. So I'm not really concerned about that, especially going up against Cincinnati. I think this is a get-right game for James Conner. No concern medically.
No concern medically.
Might call it a slump buster.
Well, he definitely needs a slump buster here this week against the Bengals, who I think you can run the ball on, and I think they get back to it this week. So I'm going to definitely play him as an RB2 this week and hope for the best. Speaking of RB2s, actually, I got nothing on this one. I was just trying to find a nice segue. We got the Eagles and then we got the Giants. We've got Miles Sanders back at practice. Alshon Jeffrey looks like he's getting ready to go. The Eagles are getting healthy. Now, we make fun of them as much as we do. They're at 3-4-1 or whatever the record is, but they're getting healthy now here at just the right time. Could this be where the Eagles really make a push for it here right now? And we kind of put the NFC least division kind of behind us. We got a 3-win team. We got 2 2-win teams. We got a 1-win team in there, I think. Like everything's up for grabs, but the Eagles seem to be getting their shit together ahead of time and looking like they're ready to roll it. I love Jalen Reagor this week. You know me. He's my boy. I'm going to ride him all year long. Put him in your lineup. Get him in there. I think he goes for another touchdown and 75 yards in this matchup against the Giants. The Giants are not very good anywhere on there. I think you can get Miles Sanders in there. I think you can definitely plug Dallas Goedert in there for a touchdown in this matchup. Not much you can really say going on. Sterling Shepard's a little nicked up too. As far as the Giants go, you probably should be starting any of them. Maybe Danny Dimes in super flex leagues is an option out there because with his running ability, as long as he doesn't fumble. I really got not a whole lot to go here about this matchup here, other than I think this is you're going to see the Giants they're definitely in contention, but I think you're going to see the difference in talent in this week's matchup. Calvin, what do you got? I know you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I think this is one of the ugliest matchups this late in the season that I can remember that could determine home field advantage in our home field playoff game in the playoffs, and that is just not. It's just not great. I think you could see the Eagles win this game, and I would expect them to. I don't know that means a return to glory for the Philadelphia Eagles, although I will say I like the point of the Eagles getting a little healthier. And I do think for as much as Carson Wentz has struggled, I think this is about the point that we need to start judging him for the rest of the season, because all of a sudden now he has Jalen Reagor, he's got Dallas Goedert back, and he's got Alshon Jeffrey, who, you know, say what you want about Alshon Jeffrey, but he's going to be a more competent receiver than they were rolling out there for a little while. So it's his best set of weapons he's had in a long time. And I think this is where we start to look at him and say, you know, like, can he be what we thought he was going to be? On the other side, I think Evan Ingram is probably the only guy that I'm really super comfortable starting. Again, he's got another good matchup this week. He's starting to heat up, starting to look like the tight end that we were hoping he would be coming into the season. I am interested in a former San Francisco 49er who has found his way onto the active roster for the New York Giants, and that's Dante Pettis. I've always loved the talent. I know I see the face down there from Dr. Feelgood, but I like Dante Pettis, and I'm curious if he finds a way to get himself into the rotation, even though I will say Austin Mack looked pretty good last week.
Austin Mack did look good. He produced there for the Giants last week a little bit. So it's still Dante Pettis, man. He was never good to begin with. He was overhyped from the get-go. Fantasy Twitter bought into the Kool-Aid. NFL Twitter bought into the Kool-Aid. No, baby, that's not it. That's not it at all.
The only thing I'm curious about with Dante Pettis is how long it takes him to get pancaked when he goes into block. He's going to get just obliterated. Soft stick Dante Pettis is what I call him. He's trash. I'm a Niners fan for anyone who doesn't know that, so I'm a little bitter.
Would you say he's a doorknob licker?
What'd you say?
Would you say Pettis is a doorknob licker?
Don't lick doorknobs, kids.
As for this matchup, I echo pretty much everything you guys said. Miles Sanders is expected back. Alshon is expected back. I'm curious if Alshon steals any work from Travis Fulgham. I hope not. I think he's played tremendously well. The only thing is Doug Peterson loves Alshon Jeffrey for whatever reason, and he wants to get him out on the field, probably because they're paying him $18 or $19 million. One thing that I know last week we talked about, we don't talk much about this, is their offensive line is getting healthy as well. So with Miles back, with Lane Johnson potentially back, with their left guard back, blanking on his name right now, but Isaac Simalo, I think that's a huge boost and takes away any excuses that Carson Wentz could possibly have. On the flip side, Sterling Shepard did pop up again on the injury report with the toe still, but also looks like his hip. I do expect him to play, and then Devonta Freeman has a chance to come back as well.
Well, that's good. You know what, Devonta Freeman, he's someone that I don't know if they necessarily need. Gallman's filled in admirably. They've got some production from Dion Lewis at times. I don't know if Freeman's really needed there. I haven't seen him produce since he's been there with the Giants, so I think Gallman's been the better back.
Yeah, and the only thing is would they give him $4 million, $5 million? So I mean, they paid him to come in. I know Alfred Morris actually outproduced Wayne Gallman last week. They're getting production. Their offensive line has been performing a lot better. But I just think because they paid him, they're going to put Devonta Freeman back out there.
Speaking of going back out there, we got the Washington Football Club versus the Detroit Lions. We are not, in my opinion, going to see Kenny Golladay anytime soon going back out there. And this is probably, for me, the most frustrating injury this season because you're having a guy in your lineup that you think you might be able to start come Tuesday or Wednesday. And then by Thursday, you pretty much know he's not going to be in there, but he's still questionable because they don't officially bring him out of your line. They don't officially give him that out tag until Saturday, if you're lucky, and you're kind of struggling what to do with this guy. I know in some leagues I thought I was so clever going Golladay and Godwin in the second and third round. I was kind of chuckling to myself like, I've got this one. But I guess that's why it's fantasy football. There's no such thing as experts. And a good chunk of it is luck when it comes down to it. And I thought I had a pretty good combination with Godwin and Golladay, but not so fast as Lee Corso would say. What do you got for us on Golladay?
He, in a situation like that, I would just say patience is key. I think that's a great call, honestly, from the get-go of grabbing him in the second and third. I know both have struggled with injuries, but I do expect Golladay to come back next week, not this week. On my injury threads, I've been saying he likely is for sure out 2 weeks, possibly a third. So if he's not back next week, then for sure, week 13? But yeah, I think he's listed as questionable right now, but I doubt he will not play this week. I can pretty much confidently say that.
Well, Sean, the half-brother of Thor, son of Odin, says he's dead.
He's not dead. You can't be too frustrated with him because he's gotten most of my leagues are half PPR, and I don't think he had a single game outside of the one he got injured in. He hasn't scored below 12 points. He's been one of the better consistent wide receivers, around 12 to 14 each game he's played.
Yeah, I'll give that to you. So, Calvin, what are you looking for in this matchup? Jeff, I know there's some other injuries you want to talk about here soon, but Calvin, what do you got?
On the Detroit side, the only person I'm interested in playing is TJ Hawkinson, who I think could have a pretty good game. Washington has not been very good against tight ends. That really is the only area they haven't been good against. They have been fantastic against quarterbacks. They've been fantastic against running backs, fantastic against wide receivers. Honestly, I really like what Washington is putting together right now. I know the record has not been good, but obviously quarterback play has been a big part of that. Really love the story with Alex Smith, although it still is just super uncomfortable watching him play. He's not the kind. He doesn't take a lot of shots downfield or a lot of challenges. J.D. McKissick had 14 targets last week.
RB3, I think, last week.
Yeah, it could be a really interesting play this week, especially depending on the health of Antonio Gibson, who I think popped up with an injury as well. So I like what they're doing. I don't necessarily trust Alex Smith, but I think he's one of those guys that could get you pretty good production from those shorter area targets. So, even Sean mentions Logan Thomas here. That's kind of where I was going. That might not be bad tight end play as well.
And we talked about this. You broke that down a little bit. McKissick. Why is McKissick getting RB3 type numbers? It's because it looks like Antonio Gibson is going to miss this week potentially here as well. And I would not go so fast there as far as only Hawkinson as being my starting guy. I really think DeAndre Swift in the passing game is going to be effective for the Lions. Maybe not so much in the running game, but I could see him going for 80 yards receiving and 5-6 catches. Because, what do I say? Washington's got that good front four that's going to get to the quarterback. The best way to alleviate that pressure is in the screen game and the draw game. So I would expect plenty of screens, quick bubble screens to the running back for Detroit to move the ball. And Matt Stafford, he's a wizard with the ball. He changes his arm angles. He can drop down below. He can do all kinds of things. He's one of the best quarterbacks as far as arm talents go in the entire league. Jeff, you want to touch a few more here real quick?
Yeah. I think it was Sean. Yeah, Sean mentioned don't count out Danny Amendola. I feel like he's always forgotten as well. On Washington's side, I actually expect Antonio Gibson to play. He didn't practice today with a shoulder injury. I didn't see anything that happened on him. So tonight or tomorrow morning, I'm going to go rewatch Washington's game and see if I pick up anything. I expect him to play, but likely limited snaps, at least in the passing game, especially when you have J.D. McKissick doing so well. Like Calvin said, he had 14 targets overall, 12 with Alex Smith after Kyle Allen went out. So I love him as a PPR flex play. I think he's a great value. And I think I looked this morning, he's like 27% rostered right now across platforms.
Yeah, just real quick, not to fact check you here, Matt, but the one thing about Washington, it's not just that they're tough against the run when they hand the ball off. They've actually also given up the second least amount of receptions to running backs out of the backfield. So they are a very good defense against running backs, no matter if it's coming from out of the backfield or up the middle. And now I will say this, if I'm a DeAndre Swift fan, which I am, I like the fact that the snap counts have been trending in his direction. And actually this past week, Adrian Peterson saw the least between out of him, Swift, and Kerryon Johnson. So that is the trend that you want to see. Now, what does that ultimately, could that change giving depending on matchup? I guess that it could, but as the season goes on, it's good that Detroit realizing they don't have a lot to play for this year at this point. So, it's best to go ahead and get DeAndre Swift in there. And so I do like his outlook overall. Just this is a tough matchup.
Not for DeAndre Swift this week.
If only he didn't have Matt Patricia standing in his way.
I guarantee you he will be better than Jonathan Taylor. I know he's definitely going to outscore Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. I know that. I guarantee you that.
Watch him get one rush, fumble, and then don't play the rest of the game.
You know what? If we made this a challenge, that's exactly what would happen.
I know we already talked about this, but I need a JT breakout game.
I would just be happy if he'd stop running up his lineman's ass half the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got Kellen Balaj vision, except now Kellen Balaj can actually move the ball forward. I'm not sure. This is one of the knocks on Taylor from the get-go. If you read my write-up on him and everything I talked about him in the offseason in our rookie guide, I said that he's had the benefit as opposed to some other Wisconsin. That line in Wisconsin was just – they were man-eaters, man. They can move bodies left, right, and center. The National Football League is a completely different thing. Does he have the tools and the talent? Yes, he has the tools and talent. But you still need that vision. I haven't seen that vision yet. If the holes aren't getting open for him right in front of him, I haven't seen him be able to make those cuts on a regular basis. He's made them, just not with the consistency that you would like, especially if you drafted him 101, 102 in your rookie drafts. So you've been probably a little bit disappointed there. Or if you took him in the 4th round of a startup at the time. Speaking of guys you weren't taking in the startup of any league, we were going to go to the Jacksonville Robinsons against the Packers. Jake Luton-led Jaguars against the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers. This is an interesting one for me because I love me some James Robinson. But he's been – one week it seems like he gets involved in the passing game. The next week they don't let him catch a pass at all. It's been a little bit frustrating, even though he is clearly the rookie running back number 1 at this point. I just don't get the usage out of him. I don't. And I guess that's, you can say that with all these rookies. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you thought he would get more involved in the passing game. DeAndre Swift, you thought would get more of the touches to begin the season with. Cam Akers, I thought would get in the lineup a lot sooner. He seems to be pushed back because of Darrell Henderson. All these rookie running backs have not had that opportunity. James Robinson's had the opportunity in the volume that was left behind by Leonard Fournette, thus the success. But one week they get him involved passing. One week they decide not to pass him the ball at all. And this is where the frustration comes in. And now against the Packers team, you're going to need to score points and score them in a hurry. I'm not sure what to expect. We've seen them attack vertically with DJ Chark, I think, right off the start last week. Looked like a good combination there. Definitely not as good as Gardner Minshew, but Jake Luton does look like he could be a serviceable backup in this league for some time. What am I looking for here? I am looking for more James Robinson. Give me all the James Robinson you can. I need James Robinson. Aaron Rodgers, I think you might see an ordinary Aaron Rodgers this week because he doesn't really have anything to be petty about right now. I'm serious. Like, unless you're blasting Aaron Rodgers, it's kind of like Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger really doesn't get going until he gets hurt, and then he gets going. Aaron Rodgers really doesn't get going until you piss him off in some petty type way. Only Aaron Rodgers could get mad at. If he watches this video, that might be enough to double check his ass and get him down the field. But you guys are laughing because I'm telling the truth here. I'm speaking the truth. Calvin, what are you looking for in this matchup?
I'll keep this brief because I think this is going to be a very ugly game. I will say that at least from my end, we were pro Luton last week. I know you have mixed feelings, King of the North over there, because your boy Gardner Minshew obviously is, he's your favorite player right now, probably. So, but the coach is now saying he may not get another snap this season. He might have gotten beaten out here by Luton. Now, I will say that this is a much different test. Green Bay is a much tougher defense than he has been playing, especially against the quarterbacks that he played last week. So I don't know. After a very large, huge play to DJ Chark last week, he kind of checked a lot down, made a play with his feet at the very end. I did think he looked like he belonged. I loved his enthusiasm. I loved the leadership that it seemed like he was portraying there, kept the game close. The guys seemed like they were playing for him. I did like to see that. I want them to keep this game close enough, like you said, for James Robinson to eat a little bit. I really think it'd be nice if he could have a good game. If Lazard is going to come back, which I'd be curious to see. I haven't seen any updates on him in about a week. So if Lazard's back, you're starting him. Robert Tonyan might be a pretty decent play as well against the Jags team that's struggled a little bit against the tight end.
Well, before Jeff steps in, because he's still on mute, and I got a quicker answer here. This Packers defense comes and goes as the Smith Bros go, if you know what I'm saying. If Za'Darius and Preston are on their game, and I mentioned this the other week, if they're on their game, they can wreak havoc on any offense. They can get into a quarterback's face and pressure. We've seen Preston Williams cause an interception here not that long ago. Like I said, if they're going, especially if you're a rookie quarterback like Jake Luton, paying out of the Pac-12 there, where you're not really used to seeing any defenses, so to speak, this is a big deal. You're getting both Za'Darius and Preston. Yes, Tracy, what are you doing? Go to bed. you're getting both these guys coming up at you, and they don't just come up at you on the edges. They come up in the middle too. Like they definitely pressure from every angle. If Packers get those guys going, it's going to be a long, long day for Jake Luton or whoever you stick behind center. I don't even know who their other options are. What do you got for us, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at. So one thing I'm curious, and I want to look into this more, is a potential reason of why J-Rob was taken off. He played his least amount of snaps. Well, he still played 72% snaps. The week prior, week 7, he played 90%. But Chris Thompson jumped up to 28%. And I'm wondering, with Jake Luton in there, who was the better pass protector? And if that's why they had Chris Thompson in. But yeah, I think one key matchup that I'm looking at in this with Green Bay's defense versus the Jags is if Jair Alexander plays or not. He's in concussion protocol. If he's unable to play pass protocol and play, I like DJ Chark even more. I think they're going to have Luton air it out, something that you might like Minshew, but I don't believe Minshew can do that, at least accurately or well enough. I think Luton can actually get DJ Chark those air yards and get this offense moving and spread the field a little bit more. And that might even open up the field more for James Robinson. So that's what I'm looking for. On the other end, you mentioned Alan Lazard. He did return to practice. They're assessing right now to see if he's ready to play. So we'll probably hear that on Thursday or Friday if he's ready to go.
Sorry, real quick here. Kirksey coming back this week?
Christian Kirksey.
I don't think he is. I think he's probably out for at least one more week. But I do not have that knowledge in front of me, but I do have a pretty good mustache, and it's telling me that Kirksey's probably out for at least one more.
Is Kirksey one of those guys for you, Matt, who I know you love IDP? Is Kirksey one of those guys that you're just like, man, if he could only stay healthy?
So he's got talent and opportunity. Those were the two big things that he had coming to Green Bay. But at some point, you are what you are. He had some success with the Cleveland Browns, but I've never been able to get behind Christian Kirksey. I know Kyle Belfuel, myself, we kind of talk about, he's a resident Packer fan that I do some IDP talks with. I know we had a little bit of argument here between Kwiatkowski there of the Raiders and Kirksey here. And I said Kwiatkowski would outperform Kirksey here just because I think even though their opportunities are equal, Kirksey just can't stay on the field. And when Kirksey does get on the field, he has the opportunity and the talent to put up big numbers. We just don't see that on a consistent basis. And for my IDP, I need guys that are going to be consistent that I can trust. I can't have those big splash guys unless I'm trying to make some sort of desperation play where I know my team's not as good as my opponent. So then maybe I load up on edge rushers to try and get those big splash plays rather than going with that consistent floor. Jeff, you got something?
Yeah, no? I don't see it. Yeah, I apologize on that. I mostly look at offensive guys. It looks like Christian Kirksey's window to return. You have a 21-day designated to return window to practice and then be brought up to active roster. It looks like that window is coming up to a close. So if they don't bring him back,
he's done for the year.
At least to active roster, yeah, he's out for the year.
And yes, Sean, always trust the mustache. It'll never lead you astray. That's probably a pretty fair assessment right now, too, as well. He is this year. He's the Kenny Golladay of IDP. Speaking of IDP, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers. You got a young Panthers defense. You've got a Buccaneers defense that was world beaters going into last week. And then they just got their asses handed to them all over the field to a point where you're asking, is this team even legit? Like, I'm not going to lie. New Orleans, they weren't that impressive to me on offense. They didn't seem to have that same – Calvin, maybe you can speak on this. They didn't seem to have that cutthroat offensive attitude they normally do. Like, they just didn't look quite as crisp and clean as what we've seen in the years past. And the Buccaneers, they just seem to be playing down on so many levels. Like, I don't know what was worse, the Bucs defense or their offense. And the Saints have a good offense, obviously, and they've got a top probably 12 defense in the league. But the Bucs, I'd have to say, were probably more disappointing than anything with the way they played compared to how then the Saints actually performing well. They did play well, but they weren't quite like the Saints that you would expect. And yeah, you're getting where I'm going. Is this the Antonio Brown effect? That's what I want to know. Going into this next matchup with the Carolina Panthers, does this, whatever is going over in South Beach here and in Tampa Bay, is this carry on to the next matchup? Does this Antonio Brown factor continue to go as the season goes? And if so, do they cut bait with him? Because there seems maybe some problems in the dressing room, some chemistry issues. You had a team that looked like they were the top team, Super Bowl bound in Tampa this year, and now they don't even look like they could be a playoff team after their performance against the Saints. Calvin, take it away.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Saints side when we get to their matchup. But as far as Tampa Bay, I mean, obviously Tom Brady coming in, licking his wounds in this matchup. And I'll say this is a really feisty Carolina Panther team. I talked about in the offseason how this was the only team in the NFL that changed their head coach, their offensive coordinator, and their quarterback. They were going to have a steep uphill climb because of the limitations of COVID. Don't fact check me, but I'm assuming they also changed their defensive coordinator, although I didn't look up that stat in and of itself. If it is, then they'd be the only one that changed all of those. So it's not a surprise that it took a little bit of time for them to come around. They got a lot of rookies on that defense as well. So you're trusting a lot of guys who don't even have experience in the NFL. After having a really difficult time against the run, the Panthers have actually been very good against the run recently. So I looked up the stat. They've only allowed 3 total touchdowns to the running back position in the last 5 weeks. We think of them as being somebody to run all over. They have not been that in the last 4 or 5 weeks. They've come together. And, I think I still like Leonard Fournette in this matchup because I expect them to go back to the ground, Tampa Bay, after only having like 4 rushing attempts last week. And if I remember correctly, that was a record in the NFL, I believe the broadcast said. So I actually do think there was a couple of times when Antonio Brown showed up, I thought, man, he's still got it, and kind of think what could have been had he been able to keep his head straight there in Las Vegas, how special that might have been. There's a lot of weapons on that Tampa Bay offense. They're obviously going to, I think they're going to bounce back. I think playing in New Orleans in prime time or playing against New Orleans in prime time, that just wasn't a good look for them. My biggest question, and outside of the injury thing that I want Jeff to comment on will we see Christian McCaffrey back this week? But my other biggest question for Carolina, not this week, but this year, my other biggest question for Carolina is DJ Moore the number 3 wide receiver on this team now? Do they like Curtis Samuel better than DJ Moore? He just does not seem to be getting the work that I hoped he would get. Man, he's such a young, talented wide receiver. What happened? I mean, last year he was so good. Now all of a sudden he can't. It's like he just can't get the work. And, Bridgewater's spreading it around. Is he now just an afterthought, 4th or 5th option, 3rd, 4th, 5th option in this passing game? I don't know. Jeff, what do you think?
Watch your mouth. Yeah. Watch your mouth talking about DJ Moore like that.
I might fight you on this because I am a huge DJ Moore fan. So I'm right there with Matt. So Antonio Gibson's injury is probably number 1 on my list of things I'm going to go watch tonight and tomorrow morning. Number 2 is DJ Moore throughout last week's game. And I think it was a lot of and don't fact check me on this, but Rashad Breeland, I believe, was primarily on DJ Moore, and the Chiefs do well at taking away those primary options. So I think that's why. I mean, Robbie Anderson has been volume. I mean, he's been the wide receiver 1 this whole year, but I think that's why Curtis Samuel got a little bit more work. So I think this is a bounce back week for DJ Moore. I like the matchup, so I'm going to bank on that. As for Christian McCaffrey, I just posted out something too because I've seen these posts recently that say could be a grade 3 AC. So it's confirmed an AC joint sprain. I've seen it could be a grade 3. He might need surgery. He might be out for the year. Stop. It's not happening. If you watch the video, or I guess I will because I analyze injuries, he's able to move his arm after the injury. He actually came back. Not a lot of people are talking about this, but he came back and played, I believe, 2 snaps. One of them, he caught a pass. He reached down low to his right side. It was his right shoulder, and he caught a pass, didn't bobble it. You could see his face, didn't have a pain response. So I think it is a lower grade 1, possibly grade 2 sprain that really is week to week. I bet that we see him next week. Now,
I'm fine with that.
Week, obviously, yeah. For this week, obviously, it's the Mike Davis show. The one thing as an injury analyst, I can look at timelines, I can look at injuries, I can analyze all these videos. I don't have my hands on them, but 2, I don't know how conservative the coaching staff will be. Carolina, they're not going to make playoffs. They have a bye week 13. So the one thing you can't predict is, do they hold him out just 1 extra week because he's your star running back? You just paid him. Mike Davis has been playing well. Do they hold him out just in case and then bring him back week 14? But either way, I can pretty much guarantee we'll see him again in 2020.
Well, I don't know if that makes anyone feel better as far as redraft leagues go, but hopefully you've had some sort of contingency plan in place. Wow, that was a lot to come out of my mouth. In place for McCaffrey, and then you're sitting kind of in that playoff bubble right now. So getting him back may be better than any trade you could be making here the next week or so. Just getting him back into your lineup, hopefully sooner rather than later. Carolina for me is like the Atlanta Falcons and the LA Chargers. These are 3 teams I don't want any part of playing down the stretch because they can absolutely win any game against any team in this league. Carolina went toe-to-toe with Kansas City, damn near gave them a loss, which the only team in the league that's been able to knock off the Chiefs is the Raiders. Anyway, but Carolina put on their gloves, and they went toe-to-toe with them. They could have easily came away with that win. So they're a team I am not looking forward to playing, and I think Carolina pulls this one off. I do believe there's a problem in that locker room already, just having AB come in there. Mike Williams seems like he could be a petty type individual too. I think all receivers really are, honestly. If you want to get into it, like I know I knock Michael Thomas more than anybody about his pettiness, and you call him Michael Jordan for it, but the truth is, I think they're all kind of a prima donna mold right now. And if you're going to be, you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin in that locker room already, you've got Scotty Miller, you got Tyler Johnson performing, and then you bring in AB. As good as AB may be, is he the guy you want to see against the opposing D? What do you say, Calvin?
I think you sound like a scorned lover, a scorned Raiders fan, and I think Antonio Brown looked good. I think Tom Brady loves him.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get that. There's no doubt Tom Brady would like to kiss him on the lips. We know Tom Brady would love to kiss Antonio Brown on the lips. That's kind of his MO. But what I'm saying is, does Michael Thomas want to see Tom Brady kiss AB on the lips? Does Chris Godwin want to see that going on? Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, guys who've been there from the get-go when the team was rolling. The team wasn't struggling. They were rolling through teams. And then you bring AB into the locker room. You know as much as I do. These prima donna receivers, they don't want to share the ball. Keyshawn Johnson may be the best ever. Give me the damn ball, Keyshawn Johnson. You really think he would want AB in the locker room as much as AB may help the team? I don't see that helping him right now. I don't.
This feels like Mike Greenberg setting up a non controversy to cut the commercial break or something. This is a guy that had 3 catches last week. We're not like the 38-3 loss is not his fault. This is not that he is not the reason. He wasn't in the locker room enough to change the team to the point that they took a 38-3 loss. They got their butts kicked by a team that finally had all their weapons. The reason why the Saints offense has not looked good is because they didn't have Michael Thomas, who opens up the offense. They didn't have Emmanuel Sanders for a couple weeks there with COVID. This offense opened up. Tampa Bay wasn't ready for it. And they got their doors blown off. It didn't have anything to do with Antonio Brown.
My main question with Antonio Brown is how long will he be there? News recently dropped that his accuser signed a sworn affidavit. So I'm just curious how long if Arians just boots him from the team.
Well, if they don't start getting wins, I think you'll see it sooner than later. That's just my mind.
If Brady allows that to happen. Fact checked and approved.
Fair point by Sean. Fair point.
Sean's got my back.
One other note, Chris Godwin, I do expect him to play. There was a report that came out that his finger was a little sore. He still has pins in it. That's expected. But yeah, he didn't have any limitations in game. No concern there.
All right, so we're going to go from no concern there to it appears no concern. We've got no concern about Tua's hip anymore. Well, we might, but not for this show. We've got a fantastic quarterback matchup here with Justin Herbert and man, I hate being Canadian, not being able to speak English. Tua Tagovailoa. Tua. Man, how many times? I practiced that like 8 times before the show, and I nailed it each and every time. Yeah, not so much. Not so much. Anyway, Tua, Herbert. This game should be the flex game, in my opinion. Get rid of the Ravens. Get rid of the Patriots game. Give me Herbert. Give me Tua. This is a matchup for years to come. Put this on the prime time. This is what people want to see. Both quarterbacks have as many wins as Joe Burrow right now. Tua's only played 2 games. Just saying. Just saying. Roll Tide. And Justin Herbert has been, I'm sorry, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert has been the most impressive rookie, not rookie quarterback, rookie this year. Tagovailoa. Close enough. Anyway, Herbert has been the most impressive rookie to this point, especially as far as fantasy goes. You look at the fantasy points per game, Herbert is killing it on any other quarterback right now. You look at fantasy production overall, I think he may even have Burrow top there as well. So you take a look at these numbers. This is going to be fun. The AFC is going to be fun. You got Burrow, you got Tua, you got Herbert. You got them there for the next 12 to 15 years. Tua maybe a little bit less because of long-term concerns with that hip injury. But man, this is going to be a fun matchup. I'm a Raiders fan, and the Raiders play at the same time against the Broncos. I may be tuning into this Dolphins-Chargers game because this is, in my opinion, the match of the week. I want to see these 2 young guys go out there and just sling that ball around the field. Oh man. Yeah, it's definitely getting my pants moving. Calvin, what do you got here?
Yeah, I think these next 5 or 6 matchups we're going to talk about, the 3 o'clock slate this weekend, I say 3 o'clock like everybody's in Central Time, whatever the afternoon slate is way more exciting than anything that's going to happen in the morning. This is maybe my favorite matchup to watch of the day. I don't care that he played at Alabama. I am also a Tua fan. I'm rooting for him. Part of it is because of something that I know, a sentiment me and Jeff share, that I love what this Miami team is doing. This Miami coaching staff has this team playing unbelievably well, even going into last season when, just everybody's talking about them tanking. They genuinely have gotten this team up to play, even with less talent. And now the talent is starting to catch up. They're starting to look like a really good team. Now, Preston Williams going to IR, that might change a little bit of things as far as what we expect from the wide receivers. I think it could mean good things for Mike Gesicki. That's one of the guys that I'm kind of looking at playing a little bit of an increased role in the passing game. But I think I'm really looking forward to is, are we going to see a game where they open things up a little bit and they give Tua a little bit more to do? So we still haven't seen him eclipse much more than what I think he had 24 passes or so last week. Didn't have to do much in that first one. I love what he's doing, but I would like to see just them open things up a little bit more in this matchup. He's actually got a pretty nice run as far as like matchups coming up. So he's a guy that we might be able to trust in fantasy for the next few weeks. On the other side, Justin Jackson, I talked about my love for him last week. Obviously, he got hurt and didn't perform and whatever. And then, it just seems like sometimes you can throw anybody in there. Kalen Ballage, can he be the next guy that gets rid of Adam Gase and actually is able to do something for us fantasy-wise? The guy I actually like in the backfield, it actually is going to be Pope. I know we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. I'm hoping that he gets a little bit more work, but I'm going to be watching to see what we do. And another running back, quick note, something I'm watching for. Could DeAndre Washington, who's now after the trade, could he factor into the backfield in Miami? So must watch game. A lot of great story points and things to watch. So, Jeff, what are you watching for?
Yeah, those were all my talking points, really. You took them all. Yeah, with Preston Williams, someone asked, Sean asked if it was short-term IR. It was. He for sure, Preston Williams is for sure missing 3 games, potentially more. I haven't heard too much information, but I'll keep looking on that one. And I agree with you, Calvin. I'd love for them to open the field up with Tua, but losing Preston, I struggle to see how they're going to do that. I mean, they could use Jakeem Grant, Mac Hollins, maybe. I don't see him having the weapons to fully be able to open up the field. In Miami's run game, I am looking to see. I love DeAndre Washington. I would love to see him get more involved. The only problem is, what is that? The only problem is this will be his first week back or with the team, so he won't have practiced very much. And Matt Breida is coming back, so it muddies the waters a little bit with how Salvon Ahmed played, and then I think Jordan Howard will be game scripted out anyways, or he won't have much of a role. On the Chargers end, you mentioned him, Troymaine Pope. He's a guy, we all thought it was going to be Joshua Kelly when Justin Jackson got hurt, and he's just shown that, Lynn doesn't trust him. Troymaine Pope came in, week 8? And they gave him 17 touches. So one thing I'm watching, I know Ballage is there. He did get reverted back to the practice squad. So I'm looking to see if he is brought up. There's a good chance they do bring him back up, with Justin Jackson unlikely to play this week. But of the bunch, I think I like Troymaine Pope the most.
Yeah, it's an interesting one there, Pope. We got a revenge game, though. Kellen Ballage, revenge game. You can never discount revenge games here. We talked about this magazine that I was part of and that I wrote earlier, and it kind of goes, I just said that when we're talking about Tua here, he's an accurate passer who's exceptional pocket presence, goes through his progressions without panicking. He can move the pocket as needed and is adept at throwing on the run. More often than not, he throws his receivers open. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing that in the pro level right now. Preston Williams and him automatically. Preston Williams, we had high expectations going into the season, and then it kind of dwindled down. It seemed like Tua Tagovailoa had got him going again. That was from Roberto there. I tried to steal that from the earlier one. The things that we've seen in our scouting reports, as far as Tua goes, we're starting to see now. And we kind of bring up this other one, Teo's girlfriends, and he kind of just talks about, I don't think they'll figure out Herbert as they did Jackson. The difference between Herbert and Jackson is Herbert's a quarterback who can throw in the pocket. I'll say it. I'll be honest about it. He can throw in the pocket. He can make those throws. Jackson can make those throws too. However, he's inconsistent in making those throws and those progressions. And often because of his ability to run, he often defaults to that probably sooner than he should. Where Herbert, who can run as well, goes through the progressions in his head, looks to pass first. You've seen that last week where he stepped up in the pocket and he probably could have ran to the end zone there. And then he tried to dump that over the middle. You remember that one? It's kind of like a throw like that he tried to do. Again, maybe I think it was an incomplete pass, but he could have probably picked up the first down if he would have ran. And that's something Lamar Jackson, I don't think Lamar would have looked for that pass. He just would have taken off. So I think him being more of the pro-style quarterback, it'll be more difficult for teams to figure a way to stopping him, because you can't make someone like Justin Herbert. If you contain him to the pocket, he's going to beat you with his arm. Justin Jackson. Thanks, guys. Lamar Jackson in that pocket, where he has to pick you apart, where his wide receivers are Miles Boykin and Marquise Brown, that ain't going to cut it. That's not going to cut it.
And Des Bryant.
And Des Bryant, who went back to the practice squad, but we won't go there either.
I will add to that, actually, as a 49er fan, seeing this in 2014-15, Greg Roman is a huge problem there. He struggles to adjust. He's predictable with play calling. So it's not just figuring out Lamar Jackson, it's figuring out the play calling too.
You're right. Greg Roman, his offense is Kaepernick. He had Kaepernick there. Things got rolling. Then they hit a halt the next season. You've seen it the next year. You've seen it with Lamar Jackson. He got the offense going. This was a very efficient offense, very dynamic, and now it's not there. When your best offensive player is Gus Edwards, and then your second best, we don't know who it is, there's a problem there in that offense. And the talent is there. J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews. These are all talented offensive pieces. Notice how I'm not saying the wide receivers. You need to get some wide receivers there in Baltimore. You need to. End of story. Speaking of teams with good wide receivers, the Raiders and the Broncos matchup. Raiders, Broncos. These are some of the best young receivers. We talked about Bryan Edwards possibly being back. I cannot wait. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun matchup to watch. If all receivers are healthy, listen to this. If all wide receivers are healthy, you've got Ruggs, you got Bryan Edwards, you got Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller on one side. On the other side, you got Judy, you've got Hamler, you've got Tim Patrick, who's been doing good things here lately. You've got Noah Fant, who Jeff's going to talk about him in a second too. This is some fantastic pass catchers in this matchup that I'm looking forward to. And even in the backside, a healthy Philip Lindsay and a Melvin Gordon against a Josh Jacobs and a Devontae Booker, who's looked fantastic in a revenge game, mind you. So I'm a little hesitant starting Josh Jacobs because Gruden is a petty coach, okay? If he can find a way to rub salt in someone's wound, he's going to do it. And I think Devontae Booker running the ball down the Denver Broncos is one way he could do it this week. That all said, here we go. We're going to see a Raiders offense get going on a Broncos defense. And we're going to see the Raiders jump out to 6-3 before their next week's matchup. I think they got the Chiefs again right away, which should be a good little tune-up game here. Because, yeah, I think it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs get a bye week to prepare for their only loss of the season. Funny how that works. That said, I like this matchup. There's going to be so many fun pieces to watch as a football fan, as a fantasy fan, especially in Dynasty. You name it, there's options out there. You got Drew Lock. You got Derek Carr, who's been playing fantastic football. There's players everywhere. Calvin, what are you looking forward to here?
Well, I agree that the wide receivers are special in this game. I think the better wide receivers are on the other side of the ball, though. And part of it is like, okay, let's just say the Raiders have the better weapons, and maybe they do overall. But here's my question: if I go out and I purchase a, let's just say I can get a Lamborghini and I put it in my driveway, and it's the best car you've ever seen. But if it doesn't have an engine, it's useless. It's just a giant paperweight. And I like what the Raiders are doing as far as winning games, but their offense right now is held back by Derek Carr. I'm sorry to say it. Derek Carr, you said he's playing well. They're not letting him throw the ball. I don't know why you spend the offseason going out and you add Henry Ruggs and you add Brian Edwards and you add, yes, I'll say it because he's been one of the few things that has looked pretty good, Nelson Aguilar. I also think with Devontae Booker, some pass catching running backs, you still have Darren Waller on track for maybe a 100-catch season. And a quarterback that you're not going to let throw the ball more than 23 or 24 times because he's just too conservative. Like, he does not take the shots down the field that allows you to utilize a guy like Henry Ruggs who can't get going right now. That is not a good quarterback wide receiver match, and I cannot imagine long-term we see very much more of Derek Carr in the future. I'm not saying he's going to be, somebody's going to take his job this year, but I just don't I don't think he's even thrown for 200 yards the last 2 weeks. They're not letting him.
He has over 2,000 yards on the season.
What's he done the last 2 weeks against the Browns and against the Chargers? Really good matchups. And they're not opening up and letting him throw the ball. And I don't understand why. You've got the weapons. Just open it up.
Well, you say, what has he done in the last 2 weeks? Win. That's what he's done. Cleveland game, forget about that. Weather conditions, this and that, no one was passing that game. That was a good old slobber knocker, crosswind going on. You were going to be tough to throw a ball in that game anyway. So they went with their run game. It was fantastic. So you talk about having all these nice weapons and not being able to use them. Sometimes in the art of war, the old school days, if I would get my enemy and I'd put his head on a pike and stick it outside my village, you weren't coming into my village. That's what the Raiders got. They've got Nelson Aguilar. They've got Henry Ruggs that'll stretch the field. Then he's got the whole underbelly to pick apart. Yeah, it's not sexy. It's not going to put up numbers, but it's effective and it's going to get you wins. And then when you suck in to get the Darren Wallers, when you suck in to get the Hunter Renfros, that's where you see him take those 50-yard shots. You saw it last week. Nelson Aguilar, 50-yard touchdown pass. He is taking those shots. They're just not the consistency of some other passers. They're using the passing and the short passing game and the run game to soften up the coverage, and the coverage comes up, and then they take those shots. You can't defend that. You know those are always going to be there. They always have that opportunity to take that shot. So teams have to defend that. But when they defend that, they leave their underbelly exposed, and that's where the Raiders are picking you apart. Dink and dunk offense, call what you want, game managing, call what you want. It's effective, and it's getting wins.
Yeah, my bad. I thought this was a fantasy show. Hey, real life quarterback is doing fine. Beat the Chiefs. Woohoo!
Well, if you look at this, if you want to go fantasy, I can pull up the Scott Fishbowl points system right now, and he's killing it right now. Yeah,
it's more of a like, since the bye week, they clearly have gotten back to the point where they're turning around, they're handing the ball off to their running backs. Which, by the way, Devontae Booker looks good, and I think he's earning a lot more touches. I really like what I'm seeing out of him. But fantasy-wise, like, if any of these weapons who we like, I really like Ruggs. I like Edwards. I like a lot of those guys. But those guys are not going to ultimately be what we want them to be with Kirk Cousins 2.0 Derek Carr.
We want to talk fantasy. Derek Carr is still like a QB 15. He's just on the outs. Look it up. Look it up. No matter where you look at it, he is quarterback 15. And as I went with DeAndre Swift over Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, I'll take Carr over Mahomes this week too.
There's 30 quarterbacks. That just puts him right.
Got me pretty good on that one. I had to think about that for a second.
Listen, he's already had his bye week as well. If you take this in, he is averaging. I got a on this one league I'm in here right now. Based on average, yeah, he's right there. He is still quarterback 15. He is just outside QB1 range right now. By, I want to say it's about 14 points. Now, that's on this one scoring. This is a 6 point per touchdown. I think it's 21 point per 25 yards, 3 points per -3 per interception. On that type of scoring, he is QB 15 with his bye week already played.
Look,
he's just on the outskirts of being a QB1.
Even Monte Teo's girlfriend thinks his production is fake.
Now that's saying something from Teo's girlfriend. Let me see on
Calvin's point.
Yeah, go ahead.
On Calvin's point, the last 2 weeks you've had, I get the wind. Yeah, at Cleveland, we can throw that game out because we weren't expecting a lot of passing anyways, right? Last week against the Chargers, we expected a big game from him, especially with a banged up Josh Jacobs. Instead, they still give it to Josh Jacobs, who's, again, banged up, but also increased Devontae Booker's touches instead of letting Derek Carr air it out with a healthy Henry Ruggs, with a healthy Nelson Aguilar, and a healthy Bryan Edwards, who did come back. He only played 1 snap, though. So that's what I want to see from a fantasy perspective is, does he air it out from here on out like they were doing? When was that? Week 5
against the Chiefs. Week 5 against the Chiefs, 22 for 31 for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. Week 7, going back to the game right before the Browns against the Bucks, 24 for 36, 284 and 2 touchdowns. Suck it.
Buffalo too, week 4, 44 attempts, 311.
44 attempts, 311. I don't know where Calvin's getting these made up numbers from. Probably from Teo's girlfriend. I don't know. But numbers don't lie. And neither does this mustache.
That's more talk than David Carr deserves. I think we should move on.
Well, we're going to move on because we got to try and get this wrapped up here quicker than we meant. Well, we really tried. Bills, Cardinals. Rapid fire time. What do you got, Calvin? Bills, Cardinals.
Just another great matchup. This 3:00 slate, man, is just incredible. We got Josh Allen here against Kyler Murray. Just really love Diggs. I'm going to be really curious to hear from Jeff, his take on John Brown and whether we're going to see him again this week. Really, really, really hope that we are. Arizona has not been good against wide receivers in the last 3 or 4 weeks. They're the second worst at giving up fantasy points to them. The Buffalo backfield is just an absolute mess. I'm really not interested in them at all. And I'm excited about Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk being healthy, maybe I'm jinxing him by saying this. I've been waiting for him to have a chance to really show what he can do. And he is. He's really excelling in that second wide receiver type role. And even kind of came out of his shell a little bit and was the wide receiver 1 for that team this past week with Hopkins struggling a little bit. So really like what we're seeing out of him. Kyler Murray is a superstar. And excited to see these two guys battle this week.
I agree. I love Diggs. I love Brown this matchup. Nuke is kind of lukewarm for me based on if what Tre'Davious White is in or not in for this week. That's going to be an interesting matchup. I know he was a little dinged up last week. So that's one of the top corners against one of the top wide receivers, no matter how you want to look at it. Man, these afternoon games are fantastic. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, are you kidding me right now? This is almost as good as a Drew Lock, Derek Carr matchup. This is going to be fun. Who gets more running yards? Who gets more rushing yards this matchup? Josh Allen? Or is it going to be Kyler Murray? I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. This is what I want to see. This is what this game is about. We get Herbert, we get Tua, we get Allen, we get Murray. Are you kidding me? Give me the afternoon off. I'm putting on my fat pants and I'm unbuckling. We're getting ready to watch some football on Sunday afternoon. Dr. Feelgood, what do you got?
Yeah, John Brown, I expect him to play. He didn't have I just saw a stat. He played something like 58 out of 63 snaps or something like that.
When John Brown's in, you put him in your lineup.
Yeah. You asked me about someone else. I can't remember at the time.
You won't know. It's IDP.
Oh, that's true. Oh, Tre'Davious White. He injured his ankle at the end of the game, and Sean McDermott said there's a small chance that he plays, but it's sounding unlikely. Kenyon Drake, there actually is a chance that he returns. I at first didn't think he would return this soon, but yeah, there's a good chance. He practiced limited today, so that would definitely reduce any hype that there was for Chase Edmonds.
Speaking of running back injuries, we're going to move along here. Seahawks, Rams. Come on, give me something with Chris Carson. Give me something. It's not looking good, but give me something. Doctor, tell me what you got.
My friend, it is looking good. Pete Carroll said that he was sprinting, cutting, running in practice. I think he was technically listed as a did not practice, but Carroll said he was doing everything as expected. So I had this week circled for Chris Carson to return. I think he does. Carlos Hyde, not so much. Rashad Penny, not so much. I think it's going to be the Chris Carson show finally.
R.I.P. DJ Dallas. The DJ is out of the house.
Yeah.
Rams, this is an interesting one for me. Can they get that offense clicking again? We haven't really heard Robert Woods again. He kind of ghosted on us again halfway through the season. He came out strong to begin with, and then he kind of ghosted us. It's time for Robert Woods to come back. This is a good matchup for Cooper Kupp, for Robert Woods. Hell, throw Josh Reynolds in there as a flex option. Jared Goff has top 5 quarterback upside this week. This is another matchup that's going to be fun to watch. Huge AFC or NFC West matchup here. Seahawks, Rams. I'm excited for this, but for the Seahawks, I think a lot of it comes down to Chris Carson's availability. I really do think that's what this matchup is going to come down to. I think the Seahawks should be able to win this, but it's going to be fun. If you want offense, and I'm probably going to curse it with this should be an offensive matchup all the way through. Lockett, Metcalf, Kupp, Woods, Carson, Wilson, Goff, maybe a tight end from the Rams. I don't know. Maybe a tight end from the Seahawks. I don't know. Like I said, fun football here coming up on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, probably my of all the offense versus defense type matchups, maybe the one I'm the most excited about is watching Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf against this Rams secondary, and the way that they have played this year. They've held a lot of teams down. So get this: the Rams have allowed 9 touchdowns this season. 7 of them. Through the air, 7 of them to Josh Allen and Jimmy Garoppolo. Only 2 passing touchdowns to everyone else. And so it's been feast or famine. Some of that's been against some bad quarterbacks, I will say that. But this Rams defense has played well against the teams that they've been lined up against. It's going to be a tough matchup. If anybody can overcome that, obviously it's Russell Wilson, and I'm not going to discount him in any way, shape, or form. This is going to be a fun matchup. I do think this is my slump buster of the week, and Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, they are in line for a great matchup. I 100% agree with you on Jared Goff. I think he is going to be in for a really good day. And just another quarterback, dingus, that's going to have an opportunity to be a top 12 guy against this Seahawks team. How does it feel that Kirk Cousins is maybe the only one that did not have a top 12 week against the Seahawks defense?
I'm not on mute. I'm just not answering it. Speaking of shitty teams, we're going to move along to the Saints and the 49ers. And I love the 49ers. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry. I forgot to talk about Cooper Kupp. I do expect him to play. I think I believe it's just a wrist sprain. There was no concern of fracture. That was being talked about for a while there.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to sit this one out because I really don't care about either one of these teams. But I know both of you guys do. So I'll give you guys an extra 30 seconds each for the – actually, let's change it up. Calvin, what are you looking for in the Saints Jeff, what are you looking forward for in the 49ers? Calvin, go ahead.
Oh, cool. Okay, so so on the Saints side, I guess I can consider this the Saints side. They have been excellent against the run, and this is a Kyle Shanahan team who he loves to run the ball. So I'm going to be watching to see, can the Saints continue their dominance against guys on the ground? I don't think they've allowed a 100-yard rusher in, I don't know, forever. Seems like the kind of challenge that a guy like Kyle Shanahan might be up to. Just excited to see if they can bounce back, or not bounce back, but they can continue what they've been doing and what they showed against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was an offense that, like you said, they sputtered for a few weeks there. They didn't have Michael Thomas. That obviously is a big deal to this team. Can they continue to push that issue against the San Francisco team that's going to fight? And I don't care how many people are on IR or not playing or whatever. San Francisco team that's going to continue to put up a fight, and certainly on defense, I expect them to be very good. So the Saints are going to have their work cut out for them. Get this, Alvin Kamara through 8 games has 60 receptions. That is an unreal number for a running back halfway through the season. He has been lights out. There was some concern coming into the year with his epidural. All of that has proven to be unfounded. Whatever was really in that shot, everybody, I think Kenyon Drake needs to take that this week.
This is probably the most disappointing stat I'm going to hear all week. I have a hard time believing that Alvin Kamara is going to get 81 receptions this year like he's done the last 3 or 4 years. This is going to be a sad ending to a streak.
21 the rest of the year. That's all he can get.
What do you got for the 49ers?
Yeah, so my big thing that I'm looking at on the Saints side, they're not missing anybody. On the 49ers side.
In fact, I was going to say, in fact, on the Saints side, they're getting a 49er potentially back in their lineup in Quan Alexander. Revenge game.
Hey, we get a Saint back in ours, Kiko Alonso. So, yeah, Raheem Mostert. Calvin made a great point about the run game. Raheem Mostert is ruled out. Tevin Coleman's ruled doubtful. So we have tired leg Jet McKinnon and Jermichael Hasty. I don't think we're going to be able to run much, honestly. I think we're going to have to rely on Brandon Ayuk, Ross Dwelly. Yes, Ross Dwelly over Jordan Reed. Kendrick Bourne should come back. I think my biggest disappointment for this week is it's not going to be anything like last year's game between the Niners and the Saints. That was one of the most fun games I have ever watched. So,
yeah, it really, and just one more quick stat from the San Francisco side, so we didn't get to talk about them. The Saints were terrible against tight ends to start the year. They have actually only given up 7.8 PPR points total in the last 3 weeks. They've been very good. So, yes, Ross Dwelly, I agree. He's probably over Jordan Reed, but they have been very, very good against the tight end. And now they get Quan Alexander. They could be really tough to beat over the top with a tight end this week.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot this was a fantasy show. I don't mean start them. I just mean I like him better than Jordan Reed. The only Niner I'm starting is I'm going to say Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I'll tell you what, I ain't going to start Hasty.
Nope.
All you jackasses made me go that way. Made me feel dirty inside and used after that was done. Like, didn't even buy me like
Jet had tired legs, man. He was crawling on the ground.
Yeah, didn't even buy me dinner after that job. I'll tell you what. Anyway, rolling along to the match that should be flexed out of your lineup. We've got the Ravens and we've got the Patriots. We go from 5 fantastic afternoon matchups. And if the 49ers were healthy, that'd be even a better matchup. But we go from 5 good matchups in the afternoon to the Ravens and Patriots, which seems like almost a huge letdown. Now, saying that, the Bucs and the Saints matchup last week was supposed to be a highlight of the week. It turned out the Jets and Patriots game was actually better than the Bucs and the Saints game. So now we've got the Ravens and Patriots going on here. This has got all kinds of ugly running around here. Fire up the Gus bus. He's going to go rolling through New England. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be like a majestical unicorn running through the fields. Like, it's going to be ugly. Lamar Jackson might even throw a touchdown pass in this one. That's how, like, we're talking about majestical unicorns. A Lamar Jackson touchdown pass could happen. What do you got,
I guess at the point of the season now where you start to say, like, okay, who's producing and who's not. And I know we came into the season saying, like, hey, Mark Andrews is our tight end 1, potentially tight end 2, tight end 3, maybe in Dynasty. Honestly, I don't think Mark Andrews is even worth starting right now. I think he is on a list of people who I'm just not interested in getting into my lineup if I can help it. You may, with bye weeks, things like that, you may ultimately have to start him in. Yeah, you're hoping exactly what Teo's girlfriend says here. You're hoping that he throws a touchdown for 5 yards to Mark Andrews, but that's about all you're hoping for with him at this point. Nobody involved in this passing game is worth starting right now. And I don't think that means that Lamar Jackson is necessarily bad, but both of these teams are prime examples that you have to invest in wide receivers and people that can get open, and that, that's the only way to really support your quarterback in that way. You've got to have guys that are going to be able to look. Justin Herbert, he's got Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is one of the best wide receivers in football. You've got to give these guys people to throw to, and Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton just don't have anybody. Look, I'm the biggest Jacoby Myers fan in the world. I was one of the only people that had him rostered in all of my dynasty leagues. I really like him, but if he's your best wide receiver, there are just a lot of problems. And he's the best wide receiver there right now. And you should go back and watch some of his juke moves where he lost yards this last week. He's just not good after the catch. And he's not going to give you much there. He needs to be like a 2 or 3 wide receiver as the number 1. I mean, it's bad. It's real bad.
Well, Jacoby Myers basically doubled his reception total. I think he had 12 coming in. He had 11 last night, or in the last matchup. He had almost the same amount, 169 yards receiving last week, which was pretty much standard with what he had for the previous 9 weeks. So I would not be chasing those points either, especially against this Ravens defense. I don't trust anyone to start in this matchup. There's no one I really want to get behind. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, maybe in flex options. Mark Ingram, maybe back, maybe not. We'll see. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's sounding like Mark Ingram to muddy the waters even more. Sounds like he's going to have a very good chance to return, according to John Harbaugh. He practiced limited today. And then even on the other side, Damian Harris left last week with an injury, a chest injury. He's banged up. He practiced limited. I still expect him to play. But the other question is Sonny Michel is lurking in the shadows, ready to come back. So he's probably going to come back. And then they throw Rex Burkhead in, Belichick loves him. So I honestly, I think Lamar Jackson would be probably the only player out of this game that I would even start. Because if you have Lamar Jackson, you're not benching him realistically.
No, you're right. You got to start him if you got him, unfortunately. Unless you got Justin Herbert on your team, which I do on a couple of my leagues in which I'm starting Herbert over Jackson. I've been doing it for a few weeks now. It's been fantastic. It's been uplifting. It's been everything you can imagine. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Speaking of non-beautiful things, we have Kirk Cousins in primetime against the Chicago Bears. Woo! This should be a fun one. Nick Foles and primetime Cousins. I think Dalvin Cook's probably going to have 55 touches in this matchup. And if Minnesota wants to win this matchup, I don't care how good the Bears defense is. The one thing you cannot do is have Kirk Cousins throw the ball, because that will beat you if you're a Vikings fan in prime time. So I want to see if by the third quarter, if Dalvin Cook's legs fall completely off, because you're going to have to ride him hard here in this matchup. So as far as the Bears go, I think David Montgomery's out of the lineup because he's still in concussion protocol. So maybe or maybe not. I think by Monday Night Football, he should be back in the lineup.
Yeah, most likely. Again, he's one of those guys, especially since it's a Monday night game. With those Sunday games, usually you want to see him exit the protocol on Friday, but even Saturday is a good sign. I'm expecting DeMont to get out of the protocol on Saturday and be fine for Monday. But it's still going to be a tough matchup. I mean, he's been struggling as it is, so I expect him. Oh, one other note too on DeMont was he was struggling with a neck injury week 2, 3, and I believe those games. I mean, he was very limited touch wise. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Nall, who a couple weeks ago a lot of people would say, "Who the heck is that?" If he gets a couple more touches, Cordero Patterson as well. So I'm not even touching David Montgomery. And I agree with you on the Minnesota side. It's got to be the Dalvin Cook show. Even as a Justin Jefferson manager, I would love to see him get more touches, but Kirk Cousins in prime time, not a winning formula.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins in prime time against the defense allowing the least amount of fantasy points to quarterbacks for the season is not exactly a recipe for success. Dingus, you sure you don't want to make a bet about Cousins being a top 10 quarterback this week?
That's not going to happen here on prime time. It's against the Bears.
I like the matchup on the other side. I actually think Allen Robinson and even Anthony Miller and Darnell Mooney could be pretty decent rolls of the dice. The Vikings team has not been very good against wide receivers. They have a young secondary, obviously, and I think that's a guy like Allen Robinson could expose some of their youth. And so, yeah, I think this feels like a game Chicago finds a way to win and, moves on to potentially being 6-4.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, you know what, though? I'm going to go the opposite, actually. I'm going to agree with you 0%. I'm going to take – you're taking the Bears here? You're taking the Bears?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings just because of this graph here. This seems like factual evidence when it comes to headaches, stomach aches, and Darnell Mooney getting overthrown by Nick Foles. This is proof in the pudding here for our viewers right now. And it's frustrating. I love Darnell Mooney. He's that field stretcher they thought they had in Ted Ginn. He's doing these type of things that you'd expect from that deep threat option. And by doing so, he kind of opens things up for Allen Robinson. Except at the end of the day, you've still got Nick Foles as your quarterback, which is the ultimate deterrent for no matter how good of a receiver you are. Allen Robinson is, to me, he's a top 8 receiver in the game. But with Nick Foles, he's not going to reach that potential. We thought he might. Some people thought he might when Mitch Trubisky went down and Nick Foles was stepping in. Boy, you guys are idiots. I'll tell you what. I wasn't one of them because I believe in the Truth Bisky. So, unfortunately, I can't do my weekly prediction where I say Trubisky comes in at halftime and wins the game for the Bears because he's clearly not coming in this week that we know of. He may ride in on a horse, but medically he's out, I think, this week.
Correct.
You want to answer this question here? I think it's a pretty easy one. I think this is I'm just team never David Montgomery. I don't want him in my lineup. I don't want to touch him. And J.D. McKissick coming off of a game where he was very well used in the passing game. Honestly, he could get 6 targets this next week, and I think he could still outproduce what I'm expecting out of David Montgomery.
I want to believe in David Montgomery. I love David Montgomery. I have a lot of David Montgomery. I'm taking J.D. McKissick.
Same. Yeah, clean sweep on that one.
So I just want to say this. Our show is wrapping up here. We are at 1:43, which is about 13 minutes more than we thought, which is also about half hour sooner than normal. So we're doing fantastic getting back to where we need to be. Probably wasted some time there on the audio with try to get me my snow swimming issue, by the way. I'll sign those. If you screenshot that and send it to me, I'll sign it for you. There's a nice picture of me getting out of there like this. I'll sign that for y'all. Jeff, yours is in the mail because I know you love my chest. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a crazy week, man. I'm looking forward to Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon may be the best afternoon of football we've had in a long time. And with everything going on in the world, I think we all deserve this. But it's 2020, and I'm sure it's gonna be a huge letdown when it comes down to it. So let's be honest. Calvin, one last word. What do you got?
No, I'm excited about the football this weekend too. So my last word is this. I think this is the final week. We got 4 weeks now of the regular season for fantasy football. It's snuck up on us, but we're right here in the home stretch. This is the time where you need to take a little bit of extra look at your teams. I think tonight, tomorrow morning, and just figure out, are you really a contender? Look at the other teams in your league. No, don't just look at your team. Look at the other ones too. Look at their rosters, teams that are really good. Let's make sure that your team is competing. And if they're not, you need to start rebuilding, and you start taking a look at some of these guys that are underperforming a little bit, maybe due to some injuries, maybe they just don't quite have the role that we want yet, and go make an offer. Start selling your team off, and if you can find a way to get some of those 2021 first-round picks, there's a really good class coming in that you want to be. Even if you want to look at some top-end second-round picks, I think those could be really good too. So yeah, this is the week to start turning the page. Follow me at Calvin and Hobby. Most importantly, follow the rest of these guys because they're way more active and a lot more fun to follow on social media. But follow me too, so I can say like I've got like some followers and like people like me too.
Jeff, last word.
Yeah, I echo that. The worst thing to be in right now is stuck in the middle. So like Calvin said, figure out if you're a contender. If you're not, sell. 2021 class is fantastic. Get those firsts, even get those seconds all the way through that round. There are some studs coming out. One name to keep an eye on as a trade, probably cheap trade candidate that you should target is Philip Lindsay. Melvin Gordon, his trial was set for December 14th. He could miss those last 3 or 4 games. And if he does, after the DUI, if the NFL punishes him, it's the Philip Lindsay show in playoffs. So keep an eye on him. Follow me at JM Thrive PT. I'll be doing my injury threads on there. Update on Friday. Good luck.
Yeah, and my last thing is, I love what you said about Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay's one of my guys. Love Philip Lindsay. He's a better running back than Melvin Gordon. I seen someone kind of post out there earlier on a question they had. Who would you rather have, DeAndre Swift, Melvin Gordon, and I can't remember the other one. There's someone else. Oh, Jonathan Taylor. And I slapped that on DeAndre Swift. Not because DeAndre Swift is so much better, but Melvin Gordon is not the best running back in Denver. Jonathan Taylor is hitting that, I want to call it the rookie wall, but it's really the offensive line. So for me, it's DeAndre Swift. We kind of talked about that. One of my trades out there, you talk about this. I'm glad you mentioned that. One trade I'm looking at where I'm not really a contender, I'm third in the league in points, but my record is 7th overall. And I was offered, I think it was Carson Wentz in a second for Matt Ryan and Todd Gurley. What side are you guys taking on that?
You're not a contender?
Well, if I can get in the playoffs, I could be. Unfortunately, I seem to be going up. I've been having one of those seasons where whoever you match up with, regardless of where they are in the standings, they have the high score that week against you. Yeah. It's one of those years. And I've got another league where I'm first in scoring and 8th overall in standings.
Oh,
I think the second has a better chance of maintaining value and being worth more in a trade for you later. So I think in terms of like where the value is, that probably is the side that I would want. Real quick, a good team to target their players right now, if you want to buy, is the Dallas Cowboys. They're not producing right now. Nobody wants them on their team. And you could potentially get some of those Dallas Cowboys for cheap. And if you're playing for next year, who cares? Dak Prescott will be back, and you'll be able to – hopefully he'll be back at the quarterback if all things are right in the world. Dak will be back. He'll get paid, and Philip Lindsay will get paid. Those are the two things I'm wanting.
All right. For Kelvin and Hobby, for Jeff, JM, Thrive, PT, I'm at Dingus 4, Matt Donnelly. Go buy yourself some Denzel Mims because when Trevor Lawrence gets there, his rocket's going to value. We love you.